The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D is centered around a particular instrument, the ocarina. There are two of these that you're supposed to obtain in the game, Fairy Ocarina and the Ocarina of Time. Can I beat this entire game without either of these ocarinas? The rules are simple. I'm not allowed to obtain the Fairy Ocarina nor the Ocarina of Time. This means the Ocarina button on the bottom screen of the 3DS must stay blank for the entire run. Glitches are allowed to help me avoid getting and using an ocarina. It's important to note that I'm only banning the ocarina item, not any songs. I must complete all of the dungeons before beating the game. This means I can't just do a credits warp without playing most of the game. With these rules laid out, let's jump into the challenge run. Starting off, I played completely normally as you would in a typical playthrough. I watched the intro cutscene and grabbed the Kokiri sword. Along the way, I collected up to 40 rupees to buy the Deku shield from the shop. With a sword and a shield in my hands, I can now go straight to the Deku tree. This dungeon is not any different from a casual playthrough, however I will be splitting the Deku tree up into 2 visits. In this first visit, I will get the slingshot and then leave the dungeon. This is because if I were to finish the Deku tree now, I would be unable to avoid getting the Fairy Ocarina afterwards. From the Deku tree, I now head over to the Lost Woods. And here is a shortcut that you are only supposed to use once you have the Silver Scale to quickly get to Zora's domain. Instead of that, I do a trick called a Navi dive to enter that loading zone. By doing 3 slashes in a row, Link will recoil backwards very quickly. If I talk to Navi when this happens, Link gets recoiled into the water with the Navi text open. The Navi text makes Link sink down to the bottom, and then he can swim into the loading zone once the text disappears. Doing this skips exiting Kokiri Forest the normal way, which forces Link to obtain the Fairy Ocarina. The reason I need to do this before beating the Deku Tree because Navi will try to talk to Link after 30 seconds of being in a location telling him to go to the Deku Tree. As a result, once you beat the Deku Tree, Navi will no longer do this, meaning I need to escape Kokiri Forest early. Moving on, now I'm in Zora's River and I want to head to Zelda. I follow the flow of the river and let it take me out to Hyrule Field. I then have to travel to the market very quickly because night is approaching and the bridge to the market closes then. From the market, I head out to Hyrule Castle and talk to the owl. I reload the area to make Malon spawn in and talk to her for the weird egg. As I make my way to Talon, time passes and it becomes daytime when the egg hatches into a Kuko. I then use the Kuko to wake Talon and enter Hyrule Castle. The guard section went surprisingly well as I did it first try without any guards spotting me. If only I could be that lucky in my speedruns. I finally enter the courtyard where Zelda is waiting for me. She yaps for a while before handing me her letter, which I'll need later. Then Impa is waiting to teach me Zelda's lullaby. What is this? Is this an ocarina in Link's hand? Okay, calm down, it's not what it looks like, I swear. Link is playing a schizo ocarina, it's not even real. In case you didn't notice, Link is playing the Ocarina of Time, but at this point in the game, he should only have the Fairy Ocarina. This is because if you don't have an ocarina, the game will show Link playing the default ocarina, being the Ocarina of Time. So what this means is that the game is actually proving that I don't have an ocarina. Since I don't have one, it's showing Link playing the Ocarina of Time by default, thus proving that I don't have an ocarina. Furthermore, when the cutscene ends, I still have no ocarina in my inventory. Maybe this means Impa gave me an ocarina to play the song and then took it away afterwards, but it doesn't matter. All that matters is that I still have no ocarina. Anyways, I now head to Kakariko Village where things will get even crazier. Collect all of Andrew's Kukos and bring them back to her. This was as annoying as ever, but it's necessary because I can get a bottle from doing so. This bottle will be essential for later in the run. I collect bugs in my bottle before moving on. Getting the Goron bracelet for Dodongo's cavern requires many ocarina uses that I cannot afford. I need to play Zelda's lullaby to enter the room with Darunia, and then play Saria's song for him to give me the Goron bracelet. This means I need a different way to enter Dodongo's cavern that doesn't require the Goron bracelet to pick up bomb flowers. This is why I will enter Bottom of the Well while I'm in Kakariko Village. This is supposed to be a late game mini dungeon where you get the Lens of Truth, but I need to enter it early because it also has bombchus. Getting to Bottom of the Well usually requires the Song of Storms, which you learn as Adult Link. On top of that, there's a large boulder blocking the entrance to Bottom of the Well. This would prevent Navi Dive from being possible, if not for the fact that the boulder is gone at nighttime. I didn't feel like waiting until nighttime though, so I did a different early Bottom of the Well strat. I start off by grabbing a Kuko and hitting it so that it will stay near the entrance to the graveyard. I then do a triple slash clip to get out of bounds. It works similar to the Navi Dive, where the 3 slashes and putting away the sword makes Link recoil backwards. but this time clipping him through a corner to get out of bounds. Then while out of bounds, I wait for the Kuko to walk near me so that I can grab it. Now that I have the Kuko, I can fall off the invisible floor and glide down to the loading zone for bottom of the well. You can see the boulder blocking the entrance much more clearly now, but it doesn't pose much of a threat from this angle. I just want to preface the early bombchus strat by letting you know that early explosives was only a pipe dream for well over a decade of this game being out. It was only less than a year ago that the first method of early explosives for Ocarina of Time 3D was made possible. I just wanted to say all this to let you know that what's about to happen is nothing less than insane. I start off by getting the compass for this dungeon and then heading to the lowest layer. I collect all 5 silver rupees to open the door at the exit of this floor. I then go over to this crawl space and get a glitch called Check A. By bringing up a text box immediately after exiting a crawl space and using a Deku Nut, Link can move around with the text box still open. If I then close the text box, you'll see my A button still says check even though I'm no longer near the text box. I go back to the very bottom of the well and activate the redead to get the camera locked here. Now I need to move Link into the area underneath the BMOS room using only the minimap to guide me. This is why I got the compass earlier. Now that I'm under the BMOS room, I need to do exactly 120 spin attacks. I wish I was joking with you right now. I literally have to do 120 spin attacks, no less. This takes up quite a bit of memory, forcing the game to unload other parts of memory. You'll see why I need to do that in a moment. After doing all 120 spin attacks, I go back to the area with the redead and now kill it. Once the redead's body unloads, the camera goes back to normal and I get normal control of Link again. Now I climb up the ladder and exit the door which I opened up with the silver rupees previously. I face my camera towards the room I just left to keep all the spin attacks loaded. If they were to unload, the game would crash and I would have to do this all over again. And finally, 120 spin attacks later, I go over here to where the bombchus are and I messed up. These rocks should be unloaded and I should be able to jump down. 120 more spin attacks later, I get back to these rocks and now they're gone. I make sure to be extra careful to keep the spin attacks loaded and open the small chest. Finally, after 240 spin attacks, I have obtained early explosives. Now this takes way too long for it to be fast for any speedrun, but it's still amazing how early explosives are now possible in this game. I now save and quit my game to protect my bombchus from any crashes. Since I have bombchus now, I can leave the bottom of the well and head to Dodongo's cavern. I show this guard Zelda's letter to open the path to Death Mountain Trail. Now I can use my glorious bombchus to open the entrance to Dodongo's cavern. In this first room of the dungeon, I use a bombchu and then a Deku Nut to make it blow up instantly and break the wall. I use that same strat on the next wall to break it open. Even though I don't have the Goron bracelet, I can move the Armos onto the blue switch. I guess Nintendo just expects you to have Goron bracelets when you enter this dungeon, so they didn't hardcode the Armos to require any strength upgrade. I don't care what the reason is, because it lets me move them and progress through the dungeon. The first Dynalphos fight was pretty easy, so there's not anything to really say about it. It lets me hit a switch, opening up the door that gives access to the second story of the dungeon. However, you need to place a bomb in the middle of all the bomb flowers to create a big enough explosion. Luckily, a well-positioned and timed bombchu works just as well and gives full access to the second floor of the dungeon. Once again, thank you Nintendo for not requiring Goron bracelets to move Armos because that would make this next room impossible as well. Bombchus of course work on this wall, and this next room is the reason why I got the slingshot earlier. You can do precise jumps around the fire, but using the slingshot is much easier. The second Dynalphos fight is not any harder than the first, but I did almost die because I was playing terribly. The room after that is another one where I'm glad I got the slingshot at the start. I am finally greeted with a large chest containing none other than the bomb bag. This item will single-handedly carry this challenge run. I then use these bombs to light up both of the Dodongo's eyes. All the rooms inside the Dodongo's mouth are fairly simple. I made sure to kill all the keys with my slingshot to avoid having any of them burn my shield. Don't ask me how many times I had to reload this save. It took an embarrassing number of attempts to go through all the rooms without having my shield burn. Moving on, I push this block on the switch to open the boss door. King Dodongo is a super easy boss. Just throw bombs into his mouth and slash him with your sword, and he's dead. Going into the blue warp will give me my first spiritual stone, and it marks the first dungeon of this run being completed. While I'm in Death Mountain Trail, I want to get magic because it's necessary to use many items in this game. Since I have bombs, I can easily clear all the rocks in my way. I scale Death Mountain and break open the wall leading to the Great Fairy Fountain. In case you didn't already realize, I need to play Zelda's Lullaby to get magic from the Great Fairy, but I don't have an ocarina to play it. This is where a glitch known as ocarina items comes into play. It works by pulling a bomb and then using a cutscene item, in this case a bottle with bugs in it, at a specific frame during the bomb explosion. If you do it right, Link will play an invisible ocarina. Since I obviously do not have an ocarina, let's pretend Link is just serenading the Great Fairy to get magic. Once Link is done singing, I head to Zora River. Since I have bombs, I can clear the entrance easily and scale the river. At the end is another place where I need to play Zelda's Lullaby, so I get Link to sing for the Zoras. They must have liked his singing a lot because they open up the entrance to Zora's domain immediately. In here, I do the diving minigame to get the silver skill. Now that I can dive deeper, I can get to Lake Hylia. I'm only here to get Ruto's letter, so I head right back to Zora's domain after. I show the letter to King Zora, and in return I get plenty of mweeps. And I mean plenty, because this guy takes forever to move out of the way. Before moving on, I catch a fish in my empty bottle and then head to Zora's fountain. Here, I feed Jabu a fish and then get swallowed along with it. There isn't much to say about Jabu. It's just as disgusting as ever, the escort mission is as boring and annoying as ever, puzzles aren't very difficult, and there are no ocarina uses. Baronade is stupid, but I beat it and collected my second spiritual stone. While I'm in Zora's fountain, I head over to this wall and explode it. Inside is a Great Fairy Fountain, so you can guess what I need to do here. I do another ocarina items to play Zelda's Lullaby and get Farore's Wind. This item may not seem super useful initially, but trust me, it will help make this challenge more possible. Before heading back to Deku Tree, you know, that dungeon I skipped earlier, I want to go back to the market. That's because I want to place Farore's Wind here. You may be thinking, that's not possible. Farore's Wind can only be used in dungeons. And that is true, as long as you're not doing the restricted items glitch. It works by swapping a usable item with an unusable item in the inventory. When you close out of the menu, there's one frame when their usability is swapped and Farore's Wind can be used. So I place it in the market outside the Temple of Time for later. While I'm here, I also head back to Hyrule Castle, where another Great Fairy Fountain rests. I can use ocarina items here yet again to get Din's Fire. Afterwards, I save and quit, putting me back in Kokiri Forest, where I can finally finish the Deku Tree. This dungeon was fairly normal, is what I would say if it was normal, but it's not. I used Din's Fire to immediately get to the basement without climbing all the way to the top. Is this necessary? No. Is it cool? Yes. I also did this cool little jump to avoid the Skulltula and pushing the block. To get to the second basement, I did a little trick to light my stick on fire on this torch, which is pretty nice. I then solved the very difficult 2-3-1 puzzle and entered the boss room. Goma isn't any different, but I got a sick one cycle on her that was pretty satisfying. After beating Goma, I go into the blue orb and obtain my last spiritual stone of the run. Now that I have all 3 spiritual stones, it's time to become Adult Link. The issue with that is I would need to get the Ocarina of Time to learn the Song of Time, meaning I need a different way to pull the Master Sword. That's why I'm heading to the Lost Woods. I damage down to half a heart and then jump into this grotto at the same time I get hit by the Deku Scrub and lose all my health. Then as I'm falling down, I quit the title screen, but when I respawn, I'm next to the cow inside Impa's house. I know this is confusing, but I'll explain it all in a moment. I then warp back to my Farore's Wind point in the market. Here, I walk over to the shooting gallery and enter it. This puts me outside the Temple of Time. Entering the Temple of Time puts me inside it. But right in front of the Master Sword. I can then pick up the Master Sword and become Adult Link. That was some crazy stuff, and I'll now explain it all during this cutscene. This glitch is called Death Hole Wrong Warp, and here's how it works. Ocarina of Time has an entrance table containing every loading zone you can come out of. By falling into a grotto while dead, then quitting to the title screen, Link will die but not get put on the title screen. Instead, it will turn on title screen mode, which as a result makes the bottom screen of the 3DS unusable. What it also does is add 4 to every entrance index in the game. By dying in a grotto in Lost Woods, it will put us in Impa's house. That grotto is the forest stage, and that entrance index plus 4 is Impa's house. When you're in title screen mode, you're free to use items that should be restricted anywhere. This means we can warp back to the Farore's Wind point. This places me in the market where I go to the shooting gallery. The entrance index of the shooting gallery plus 4 is outside the Temple of Time. Is it starting to make more sense now? So then when we enter the Temple of Time, instead of putting Link at the entrance, it places him after pulling the Master Sword. Doing all this skips the Door of Time, thus skipping the Ocarina of Time as well. It's also important that pulling the Master Sword removes Death Hole state and makes this entire trick possible. Since we never watched the cutscene of Navi going up to the Master Sword as Child Link, it plays now. So we get to see Navi swirl all around Sheik as Adult Link watches. Anyways, the Door of Time is still here, so we need to save warp to get past it. When you save and quit as Adult Link, you get placed at the entrance to the Temple of Time, which is super useful for making Door of Time skip work. Now that I have Adult Link, I can go to the Adult Dungeons. I start off by heading towards Kakariko Village. I get a Hylian shield from one of the graves before heading to the Dampé grave. Here, I do the Dampé race to get the Hookshot. After the race, you're supposed to play the Song of Time in front of these time blocks, but I don't have that song, so I just save warp. This puts me back in the Temple of Time like the last time. Now that I have the Hookshot, I can go to Forest Temple, so I start by heading back to Kokiri Forest. Thankfully, entering the main entrance does not play the Fairy Ocarina cutscene and force me to obtain it. However, my luck runs out soon enough. There is a Kokiri blocking the path to Sacred Forest Meadow that makes you play Saria's song to get past. Normally, I would just let Link serenade her, but I never actually learned Saria's song because that was locked behind getting the Fairy Ocarina. Instead, I do a glitch called Ledge Cancel. It works by climbing a ledge and shielding a damage source at the end of the animation. Doing this makes Link ignore the hitboxes of many actors, including the Kokiri blocking our path. It also makes the camera act a bit weird, but that's not much of an issue. I travel through the rest of the Lost Woods in the correct order and arrive at Sacred Forest Meadow. Here, I kill all the moblins in my way and learn the Minuet of Forest from Sheik. She must carry a spare ocarina like Impa because Link is playing the ocarina during the cutscene, but there's no ocarina in my inventory. After this, I hookshot the tree and enter Forest Temple. I'm not gonna lie, when I got here, I realized I didn't take into account everything when planning this run out. There are two large blocks that you need the Goron bracelet to move around. I obviously skipped the Goron bracelet earlier, so I can't use it here. Additionally, I can't go back to Child Link because Door of Time skip is a one-way trip. The good news is I have an idea of how to save this. I start off by skipping the entire dungeon and going straight to the boss. I can clip into the staircase and fall straight into the boss room loading zone to skip the entire dungeon. This means I'm skipping the bow, so I'll need to come back to get it later. Phantom Ganon is not much different from a normal playthrough. The only thing I changed was hitting the painting Phantom Ganon with my hookshot instead of a bow. It works the exact same, but Nintendo probably thought the player would use a bow here. Going into the blue warp gives me the first medallion of the run, but I'll be back here later for a bow. Also, we see Saria in this medallion cutscene, which is pretty funny because canonically in this playthrough, Link has only seen her in the first 10 seconds of gameplay. Normally you would see her again when she gives you the Fairy Ocarina, and again when you learn Saria's song, but not this Link. We only saw her outside Link's house and never again until now, which is pretty funny. Now I'll head to Fire Temple and see if I'm able to beat it without the bow. I go through the Lost Woods and take the Goron City shortcut. I explode the Goron that's rolling around and talk to him to get the Goron tunic. Doing so also opens up all the doors of Goron City. I'm able to pull the statue to enter Death Mountain Crater, despite not having the Goron bracelet. You would think in a city full of Gorons, it would take more than base Hylian strength to pull statues, but I guess not. In Death Mountain Crater, I hookshot over the broken bridge to learn the Bolero of Fire. Sheik lends me her ocarina yet again, but I do not keep it after the cutscene. Afterwards, I jump down and enter Fire Temple. I start by going into the room with Darunia and talking to him. I don't really remember what he said, but it was probably something about saving the Gorons. I will not be doing that. They made it annoying for me to avoid the Goron bracelet, so I'm gonna keep them in this dungeon. I still need to open the gates to get the keys, but the Gorons only leave the cells when you talk to them. So I get my key and leave this room. I open the doors to the next room using my key, where two new key rooms are present. I get both keys and make sure not to talk to either Goron. In the next room, I climb up the walls to get to a large block that I need to push. Surely these Gorons will have a heavy block here since they are so strong, right? Nope. Just like the statue in Goron City, this block moves easily without any strength upgrade. I'm putting the Gorons on fraud watch, because how are they big, strong rock creatures, yet everything they need to move around is super light? Anyways, I ride the block up to the next floor of the dungeon. In this room is another large block I need to push, except this one is too heavy for Link. Wait a minute, that's a Gerudo emblem. This means the Gerudo women are moving around weight far heavier than Gorons. This does it. Gorons are officially the biggest frauds of Hyrule. To bypass this Gerudo block, I can do a precise roll to jump up and grab the top of the Gerudo block. This lets me get to the top of the room without pushing the block. I use a bomb to hit the switch and climb the ladder to the top of the room. In the maze, I get 2 keys and save 0 Gorons. I use 1 key to open a door to this dangerous room. It has an eye switch which requires the bow to hit, but luckily it only leads to the dungeon map, which I don't need. I use the other key to open the room with the scary fire chasing you. This just takes me back to the maze, but this time on top of it. I break the floor here and drop down to get a key. Then I climb back up and hit this yellow switch. This opens a gate leading to another key. I grab it and head back to the scary fire room without saving the Goron, of course. This time, I open the key door and move into the next section of the dungeon. There's a fire maze that I need to navigate to get to the next key door. Then there's a yellow switch I hit to get rid of the firewall to enter the mini-boss of this dungeon. Flare Dancer is a simple boss I can defeat using my Hookshot and Master Sword. There's nothing particularly difficult about it in this challenge run. If anything, I was more stumped by the fake door leading to this boss than the boss itself. I take the elevator up to get higher into the dungeon. I use another bomb to hit a switch and climb up to the highest room in the dungeon. Here lies a switch that I need to step on, leading to the Megaton Hammer, which I finally obtain. The rest of the dungeon consists of hitting blocks with the Megaton Hammer to get lower into the dungeon. Eventually, I reach this one block that I hit and it gives me access to the boss door. There's a key that leads up to the boss key, but to get to the key, I need a Song of Time to move a block, so I'll get the boss key another way. I use a glitch known as Hookshot Clip to get my hookshot barely past the gate to hookshot the chest. This brings Link through the gate and lets me get the boss key. There's an added bonus to this glitch, being the Goron is never saved because the cell never opens. He gets to keep cowering in fear like the little fraud he is. Since there's collision on both sides of the gates, I need to save warp to get out of here. Then I could go down to the boss door and open it to fight Volvagia. You just need to bonk him on the head a few times and he'll be done for. Going into the blue warp gives me my second medallion. I want to head over to Water Temple now, but there are a few issues. Not just Water Temple, but Shadow Temple 2 have puzzles where you need the bow and Goron bracelet. Unfortunately, these aren't easily skippable like all the previous ones I've faced. Now what if I told you there was a way for me to beat both Water Temple and Shadow Temple without doing anything other than the bosses? You might say it's not possible, but it is. The strat is called Boat Skip, and here's how it works. Start by save warping to get put back into the Temple of Time. Then I enter Market from Temple of Time and place Farore's Wind using restricted items, of course. After that, I damage down to low health using the Redeads. Now I go to Kakariko Village and hit the ground to make a grotto appear. I then die into this hole using a bomb to get the Death Hole Wrong Warp state activated. This Wrong Warp is different from the Door of Time skip one though. We want to quickly get into the spot that warps Link out of the grotto, but also use Farore's Wind as we are being taken out of the grotto. Instead of being put in Market from Temple of Time like a normal Death Hole Wrong Warp would, we get put into the Market from the left alley. We placed Farore's Wind here because we want to do that again. This time we go through the right alley, which puts us into the market, but coming from the market entrance. Again, we want to enter the loading zone and warp back to the Farore's Wind point at the same time. This loading zone plus 4 takes you to Shadow Temple, but the Farore's Wind point writes the coordinates for where in Shadow Temple. This is why for some of the wrong warps, Link gets put underneath the map. By nudging Link down and left, he will enter a loading zone. It's supposed to be the Shadow Temple boss room, but that entrance plus 4 is conveniently the Water Temple boss room. Fighting Morpha is simple. I hookshot it and pull it into a corner to stun lock it until it's dead. Make sure to damage down because I want to die soon. Then I enter this blue warp, but we don't actually watch the cutscene. The screen just goes black and you can't see anything. You can tell by the music, however, that Link is in the Chamber of Sages. Since I still have control of Link, I can use Farore's Wind when in the Chamber of Sages and warp back to the boss room. For a second as I warp, you can even see the Chamber of Sages light up. I then place Farore's Wind again and die. Now I can save and quit to get out of title screen mode. Since the last loading zone I entered was the Shadow Temple boss room and I no longer have title screen mode, warping to my Farore's Wind point brings me back to Shadow Temple. This lets me fight Bongo Bongo immediately after Morpha, which is super fast for speedruns, but also just a really convenient strat for this challenge. Bongo Bongo is a bit tricky since I need to use the hookshot rather than a bow, but it's doable. I only had 3 hearts, so this fight was scary and I almost died. Thankfully, I managed to survive to get another medallion. I guess I should mention now that the medallions are given to you during the white fade out of a blue orb cutscene. This means I still got the water medallion even though I didn't watch the cutscene after the blue orb. Even though I beat Shadow Temple, I need to go back inside to get the hover boots. I used Din's Fire to open up the entrance to the dungeon. Despite not having the Lens of Truth, I'm able to make my way through the initial parts of the dungeon and get to Dead Hand. Fighting this monstrosity rewards me with the hover boots. Such a terrifying dungeon, but it has such a cool item. Now I'm free to leave Shadow Temple and continue onwards. Lastly, we have Spirit Temple, but I can't get to it through normal means. I would need either Epona or the long shot to cross Gerudo Valley, and I have neither. So instead, I head over to the Ghost Shop, place Ferora's Wind with restricted items to set up for a Wrong Warp. Then I leave the Ghost Shop into a Death Hole Wrong Warp using the grotto right outside the market. Returning to my Ferora's Wind point takes me to Spirit Temple. Here, I intentionally die so that I can save and quit to remove the Death Hole state. There's a large Gerudo block that requires the Silver Gauntlets to push. To avoid that, I do a sick parkour strat to get on top of the statue. Then from here, I can precisely move with the hover boots so that Link grabs onto the block and climbs on top of it. While out of bounds, I roll with the hover boots to the Beamos and fall back in bounds. Hitting the switch on the ceiling opens up the next room. I get all the silver rupees here to get a small key. Then I go into the room after that and push the mirror to solve the puzzle. To get another small key, I do Ocarina items to play Zelda's Lullaby on this hand. This spawns a chest that I can get on the other hand. Pushing the Armo statue down opens up the child half of the dungeon. You can probably guess where this is going. I move the Gerudo blocks, which thankfully don't need the Goron bracelet to pull. Then I fight the Iron Knuckle. I nearly died here, so this fight was pretty intense, but I made it out alive. After that, I can get the Silver Gauntlets as Adult Link. This will let me push the blocks in Forest Temple and finally get the bow. While I'm here, I can do some precise movement to get up onto the other hand. Now I can get the Mirror Shield immediately after the Silver Gauntlets. I need to fight another Iron Knuckle to leave this area. Then I use my Mirror Shield to get a key and use it in the next room. I scale the large wall before needing to play Zelda's Lullaby again. I do Ocarina items once more to get into this room with the boss key. I thought it would be impossible to get the boss key since there's an eye switch here, but I was wrong. It turns out you can just roll into the chest, and if you mash fast enough, Link will open the chest before getting hit by the fire. After that, I do a few more mirror puzzles and enter the boss door. This forces me to fight the third Iron Knuckle of this dungeon, but plot twist, it's actually Naboru, who Link never met in this playthrough. Bunrova is identical to normal gameplay, so there's nothing to say about it. I enter the blue warp to get the final medallion, but I still have to get the bow. This is because even though I can get the light arrows item, I need the quiver from the bow item in order to actually use the light arrows. After getting the spirit medallion, I do Ocarina items to play the Minuet of Forest. This brings me back to Forest Temple so I can get the bow. I fight the Stalfos to get a small key, then I push the 2 Gerudo blocks with my Silver Gauntlets. I needed to get another key, so I do a glitch known as Ledge Clip to get past the Song of Time block. It works by targeting the wall as Link grabs the ledge, clipping him into the block. I continue onwards until I get to this red switch that drains the water in the well. Then I drop down into the well and open up the chest for another small key. Now I can go back to the top of the dungeon and fight the second round of Stalfos. Beating them rewards me with a bow. After already doing all the dungeons in the game, I finally have the bow. Now I can leave this dungeon and save warp back to the Temple of Time. Conveniently, this is the place where the light arrow cutscene happens, so I can watch it immediately after getting my first bow. All that's left is to go to Ganon's castle, complete the trials there, and defeat Ganon. Starting off, I go to Shadow Trial because this one houses the Golden Gauntlets. If I don't have fire arrows, I need to do a hover boost to get over to this torch. From here, I can use Din's Fire to light the torch and make the platforms appear. I can do some precise movement with the hover boost to make it across the room. Hitting this yellow switch makes the chest spawn. I can barely hookshot and open it for the Golden Gauntlets. Hitting the switch with the Megaton Hammer makes some invisible platforms appear. I don't have the Lens of Truth, so I need to traverse them blindly. I then shoot a light arrow to dispel the magical barrier. Next up is Water Trial, and it's much easier than Shadow Trial. I start off by unfreezing the red ice with the blue fire and killing all the freezers. Then in the next room, I melt more red ice and hit a switch with the Megaton Hammer. This brings me to the room with the magical barrier that I can dispel. In Forest Trial, I light up the torches with Din's Fire and shoot a precise arrow shot to hit the torch in the air. In the next room, I get all the silver rupees with the help of the hover boots. Another trial down. Spirit Trial starts off with an easy silver rupee puzzle. The next room has me use a bombchus to hit a switch. Then I'm supposed to use fire arrows, but I can do a very tricky shot near this torch to light my arrow on fire and burn the web. This lets me hit the sun switch and finish the 4th trial. Light Trial has some invisible enemies, which would be a bit difficult if not for the yellow arrows that appear on top of their heads regardless of if I'm using the Lens of Truth. The next room forces me to use Ocarina items to play Zelda's Lullaby for a key. Final puzzle is just to get some silver rupees, which is simple enough. I didn't fall for the fake magical barrier and moved on to the last trial. Fire Trial is just one big silver rupee puzzle. It's not too bad to do, but the problem arises afterwards. You need the long shot to reach the end of the room, which I don't have. To combat this, I do a speed glitch called a Fess that lets me cross the gap with my hover boots without falling into the lava. This lets me barely reach the edge and climb up. I shoot a light arrow to dispel the last magical barrier. Now I can finally start making my way up to the top of Ganon's castle. The first room wasn't difficult, but the Lizalfos dodging most of my attacks was very annoying. The next room with the Stalfos wasn't bad either. Killing them lets me get the boss key to get to Ganondorf. Fighting the Iron Knuckle and Dark Nut may seem scary, but I made sure to only fight one at a time so it was less difficult. Finally, I make my way to the boss room where Ganondorf is waiting for me. Ganondorf was extremely easy to fight. The only notable part of this fight was that it felt like we were playing Pong against Ganondorf for a minute straight in the last phase. The collapse sequence went as you would expect. Unfortunately, I did not get a kiss from Zelda at the end. The Ganon fight was also fairly simple. I whacked him with the Megaton Hammer in phase 1, finished him off with the Master Sword in phase 2. He nearly killed me at the end, but I managed to end the fight before then. The final slash in his head marks the end of this run and my victory in completing this challenge. So to answer the question, can you beat Ocarina of Time 3D without the Ocarina? The answer is yes. Yes, you can beat this game without an Ocarina. This challenge was extremely fun to plan out and run through. I wasn't 100% sure it was possible, but it looked like such a cool showcase of what you can do in this game, so I had to try it out. I really hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, so subscribe for more challenge runs and speedruns. Who knows, maybe I'll attempt a no songs challenge run, but I'll save that for later. Thank you for watching. See ya.